Hey everybody, welcome to Summit. This is April 2024. It's April already. Katie, how's it going?
It is going well. I can't believe Q2, the beginning of Q2. If you guys do Q2 as the annual calendar, I know some people do it. But anyway, happy April, happy Q2.
Yeah, you come from corporate, so that was important. Here in real estate world, it's just the spring market, the fall
Spring.
market, the summer market. That's all we care about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so things are going well for you.
They are. Yeah, have a listing out there, which is great. I just closed at the end of last month with a client. So yeah, spring market has been popping. And now with this NAR settlement,
Oh
it's
boy.
really popping. So, what about you? How is your spring popping
Yeah,
off?
spring like thawed right out, and I had people come out of the
Hmm.
woodwork all over the place and want to buy some house hacks, and I have a couple listings coming up. People are kind of, it feels like the smart people, they are trying to beat out the interest rate reduction and knowing that that could bring in more buyers and kind of trigger a
Absolutely.
seller's market all over again. Uh,
Absolutely.
so yeah, so my smart people, they're well, what if we buy now before summer
Oh,
pops off? And yeah, we're seeing like properties that are sitting on the market longer, more concessions being thrown around. So I think that they are the smart ones.
absolutely. And if you've been paying attention to what the rates are doing, they're not really going anywhere. And
Yeah,
the Fed, yes, they have agreed to, lower rates 3 times this year, but we don't know when that's coming.
yeah,
So that could be Q4. So again, if you, depending on what your buyer's seller's needs are, I think that is 100% accurate. The smart ones are kind of, okay, let's go.
yeah, yeah, totally. And yeah, you don't know when they're going to reduce rates, and if they do, you buy now and they reduce rates in Q4, then
More buyers,
yeah,
more sellers,
yeah,
like just more
more
competition.
craziness, and you could refi, if it makes sense.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so you hinted what we're talking about today, which is on everybody's mind if you have a license and you're part of
Hmm.
NAR, which is the NAR settlement, which we'll kind of talk about how that affects investors. Probably won't rehash all the insane details because everybody's doing that.
Yes.
But we're both investors. We're both navigating this market with investor clients or your own uh, purchases or your own sales. And so let's get right into it. Let me share my screen here and we'll jump in. So, yeah, welcome to Summit. Why us? So, this is obviously a free mastermind inside of EXP. We want it to be a high level, acquire knowledge, and get actionable tips, tactics, and takeaways. And also, if you find value in this and you know any other investor agents can help you attract investors and agents to EXP. So, it's not just about us. There's 50 or 60 other agents inside of Summit now, and a
Absolutely.
lot of expertise there, and a lot of people who are interested in investing or already investing as agents, which is cool. Um, so this is the two of us. If you want to get a hold of us and any other way besides uh, workplace, of course. And so yeah, I think that people forget that this is kind of why we're in the business. I don't know, Katie, if you want to talk about this.
Yeah. Due to what we're talking about, due to what's been in the news, the crazy headlines, I thought that this quote really kind of resonated with me. Success in real estate comes down to two factors: taking care of and valuing the customer. And as investors ourselves, we sometimes are the customer. Being an agent for, an investor client, they are obviously the customer. If you are providing value, if you are being transparent with what your services are, um, taking care of them, then what we're about to talk about shouldn't change your business, although you do need to be in tune with what's going on. So I think if you always keep this in mind, taking care of and valuing your customer, even if it's yourself and your business, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and this will come down to like protecting yourself and protecting
Mm,
the things that you're putting out there as an agent. Even if you only work with investors, this still affects you. Even if you are only doing your own deals, this affects you.
absolutely.
So Yeah, today's agenda, we're going to talk about what it means to buyers, sellers, and investors. What is it? Pros and cons, what to do, who to follow, articles and videos. Um, and we'll jump right in. So, Katie, give me a rundown on the NAR settlement just on a 30,000-foot level.
Yeah, so if you have been following this, the NAR, National Association of Real Estate, they just settled a $480 million lawsuit that will be paid out over 4 years. Um, Again, go to the NAR website to find out the actual facts and to the high level information of what's going on. But basically, two things have been proposed in the settlement that will be rolled out in July. So it does resolve claims against NAR. Nearly every member in every state, they've kind of said that we have your back, right? And two, it preserves the co-op compensation as an option for consumers looking to buy or sell. So basically, how the compensation that agents are getting paid for from a listing perspective, from a buying perspective, that will be altered come July. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper into, what has come out of that. But that's just really the high level of the settlement. There's been talk about, not conspiracies, but basically anti-competitive, slanderous things have been said about the NAR. So basically, this is going to hopefully provide some transparency around how agents are paid, the value we're providing to our clients. So again, resources, go to the NAR. They have FAQs, they have high level information about like what's going on. So definitely, yeah, go check that out. But that's in a nutshell what this is.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that stuff's out there and has been hashed over through the media and through um, I've had people jump out of nowhere and ask me like, how is this going to affect your business?
Mm-hmm.
Like people who don't usually ask me real estate questions, it's like
100%.
um, and it's like, and it's kind of like, well, we don't quite know yet, uh, but yeah, there's pros and cons, obviously, for the consumer. I think that there's pros and cons for agents, of course, but you know,
Absolutely.
as to point number one, you know, they, I think that this is good on a lot of levels of increased competition. So by addressing the anti-competitive practices, it could potentially open up the market to more choices for consumers, leading to better service and possibly lower costs. Now, this to me sounds like there's always going to be things that fill in the gaps on on a shift like this. So like the market shifts, and now there's room and opportunity for flat fee buyer brokers or consultation services for buyers, so that they don't have to go with an agent. Now,
Mm-hmm.
are all of these things good? Not always, uh,
Mm.
but I think as a pro, you know, it could actually just open up better visibility for what agents do provide. It's like you go through a consultation service or a flat fee buyer broker and you have a bad experience. And then you go back and you go, like every time I go on vacation and I think I'm saving money by like booking a cheap rental car through a no name
Yeah.
agency, or I think that I'm saving money on, you know, a discount airline or something. I always get bit every time.
Yeah.
And so
And sometimes you get what you pay for, right?
I know. And like and so yeah, I think the increased competition overall can be good.
Hmm.
It'll be interesting to see kind of what plays out here. But
Yeah. I think this leads into the second pro for consumers of more transparency. But bottom line is, to your point, you will have to pay something. Nobody works for free. That's what I've been hearing over and over. And in this new market, you might be able to be more transparent about what you are actually getting and what you're delivering to your buyers, which could potentially mean increased competition. You could potentially get more buyers because you're just having really honest, transparent conversations.
yeah,
But there will be costs involved, right? I mean, I think fair pricing also goes to this as well. Like if your buyers don't want to pay, a flat commission, a fee, or excuse me, a percentage, maybe you go to a fee, maybe, but if they want to do this alone, hire a lawyer, or you will be paying something for the services that agents are providing, the contracts, the negotiation, the explanations, the working with title. There's somebody's going to be paying for these services. So I think I think that's a pro. I think, again, if you are a good agent and you're explaining these things and you're explaining the value you provide, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously cons. I don't know if you want to hit number one, because that could be definitely very interesting if brokerages either leave NAR, they, which has been threatened. There are some brokers that are like, we're out. Like,
we don't need
whether that's going to happen or not. But
so what will happen to the MLS, right? What will happen to the NAR agreements? I mean, there's multiple MLSs across, in Colorado alone, there's multiple. So depending on how this all shakes out, the limited access to listings, like how you're getting access to these. I mean, the consumer is very aware of the market if they're engaged consumers and they're actually looking. They can go to the Zillows, the Redfins. How that will all play out in the back end of how listings are actually advertised, I think, is yet to be seen.
Yeah.
And also access to the listing. So, hey buyer, I'm a buyer and I want to go look at these 3 properties. Well, if you don't have those agent agreements in place, if you haven't had that conversation with an agent providing value, how are you going to get access to the listings?
Right.
So I think that can be very challenging moving forward too. Like if you don't I want to do this alone, well, the seller's agent isn't going to be able to potentially let you access it because that's considered dual agency. It gets very messy.
Right.
I'm still not understanding like how that will all work out. So
yeah, it's like gone are the days where you can just call off a sign or call an agent and just say, hey, can I go see this one property? And an agent would most of the time be willing to go show you a property. Now there has to be some sort of agreement in place, like an employment agreement, basically saying like even if it's a limited engagement, even if it's like a 24-hour thing, or a one property, one-off thing, now there's an extra layer in place there of hey, like there's an extra hurdle. And then if you're unrepresented and you're calling the listing agent because that's the only person that you can get a hold of, they may not want to show you the property because they just don't have time and there's no agency agreement in place. Like it could just be less access to properties overall. And then obviously confusion. This is like a problem here. Hold on. Did you
No, I'm still here. My my headphones disconnected though.
I'll let you fix that real quick because it is echoing now. But that's as soon as it gets reconnected, it should be okay. So without this echoing here too much, the confusion is already crazy in the market with a bunch of people having no idea what the heck is going to happen, how this is going to affect. And that's confusing on the agent side. It's doubly confusing on the consumer side. They're literally like, I don't know how this affects me. I've heard that now I don't have to pay for agents, right? Now I'm going to save money. Or I've heard that 6% has gone away because that's what the media is saying, so it is confusing, which is always a con.
Yes.
We have to go through and clean up the messaging, I guess.
Yeah. And for the average consumer, if you had kind of a yucky agent, maybe that wasn't clear. These have always been negotiable. What you work for, what the sellers are putting forth from a co-op and a commission, that's always been negotiable. So that I think there's some confusion about that. Like, oh, well, it's just always been 6%. That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. And yeah, that is very true. So, when it comes to agents, pros and cons for consumers, now we're going to run into pros and cons for agents. And the first point here is fair competition. So the agents who abide by the ethical and legal standards may benefit from a more level playing field. This would probably weed out some of the, low effort, lazy agents who aren't providing service, taking care of their clients. And we all know lazy agents. So this might weed out some of those, because now we have to, fight a little bit harder for those buyers as this whole thing is playing out. Do you want to tackle number 2 there?
Sure, yeah. So improved reputation, I think, goes right along with that competition. I think if you are mastering your script around the value you provide, if you're mastering the relationships you have with your clients, with agents, with the transparent, information that you are providing, and really walking through what happens in a negotiation, what happens in a transaction. There's a lot involved. Believe me, as an investor who turned agent, you realize how much is involved. Oh my goodness. So the improved reputation, if you can be that trusted source that your clients are going to, or your sphere is looking at you with the messaging you're putting out there, the information, the transparency, I think that that's a good thing. I think that will just improve your reputation and your brand as an agent.
Yeah, and I think it's like the one thing, the one big takeaway I had from the EXP kind of breakdown of this is treating your buyers like you do your sellers when you go
Absolutely.
into a listing presentation. You're now doing a buyer presentation of like beef up your resume on your your negotiation success. Your like how many homes are you typically showing before they find the right one. Like metrics like that, so
they
that
matter.
your reputation can then be built on. Some of that stuff didn't matter in the past as much, and now it might be more of your reputation that you can build on moving forward. And so obviously the cons, everybody, this is like the number one, right? The changes to the commission structure. So it might include changes on how commissions are structured or shared. Obviously, after June 15th, is it June or July? June.
It's July.
July 15th.
Yeah.
After July 15th, there will be no co-op listed in MLS, as far as I understand. And now you have to kind of pre-negotiate before you even go see properties. So more work as well for the agent, for the buyers.
But I think this goes to the competition, the fair competition. If you are a lazy agent and you are not having these conversations, this is going to be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Like the last 2 clients I had on the buyer side, I had these conversations with them because, I kind of knew that this was coming. This has been in the works for quite a while. So you should just be having these conversations with them. You should be explaining your fiduciary responsibilities to them and just how this works.
Yep. And not only that, like back to, we all know lazy agents. If you're, it's hard enough to get a hold of agents, in the first place. But if you're, like I went to go see 5 properties yesterday with some clients. I looked through the co-op just now as a mental note.
Sure.
But now, okay, I have to build in time to call each one of these agents to see, since there's no co-op in there. Now there's a lot of upfront work of calling that agent. Like, I can't even get a hold of this agent where I want to put in an offer like today.
Yeah.
That's my goal right after this call, is to try to track down this agent. How, these lazy agents, they're going to get weeded out eventually, because they're just, if you're a non-communicative agent, which we've all encountered, now every time you go show properties, I have to make 5 phone calls, and I might get a hold of 2 of them. What
Yeah.
do I do with those other three that I can't get a hold of and like pre-negotiate this
Yes.
co-op, or at least find out what they're offering for co-op? Some of them will be in MLS as part of the seller concessions. There will be, like, instead of looking at the co-op
Language.
section, you're now
Yep.
going to look at the seller concession section of seller is offering, 2.5% as seller concession so that they can
Mm-hmm.
fulfill their buyer broker agreement for the buyer's agent. Like,
Yep.
that will be there, but there's going to be plenty where it's not there. And now you have to actually like get a hold of that seller before the showing. So
Yes.
I'm not
And
looking forward to that.
no, no. And to be clear, that's not only so you understand, but so you can explain to your client, hey, they're not offering this. So that will change what you need to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like a greedy, like, oh, well, they're not offering commission. Like, it's
Right.
more of, I need to understand this so I can explain to my client that, okay, well, this is what this means for your out of pocket costs.
Right. Yeah. And each showing now isn't just like, oh, well, what are their, what's the listing price? Well, now it's
Yeah.
like, well, the listing price is $850, but they're not offering a co-op, so we'll have to negotiate an extra 2% for my fee. Like, those conversations are
Absolutely.
not fun,
No,
but now they're going to have to be common, right?
they're going to be needed. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And then yeah, obviously that rolls right into adaption.
Yep. Yep. The adaptation challenges, contracts will change, language will change within not only what's advertised on the MLS, but what's in the contract. So I think that there's just going to have to be an education to not only, agents, but agents messaging to consumers. So I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing, but it's, there's with change comes a little, tripping. So
Yeah.
it's going to
Yep.
be a interesting
It's going to be
ride.
fun. Yeah, and it's going to weed out, like, when you start talking to agents, like how much
Oh
they know
yeah.
about this immediately. You're going to be like,
Yeah.
ugh. All right, so what can you do as an agent, Katie? What can you do?
Yeah, so we just touched on this. So pricing will be even more key. So really understanding to what you just explained before you go on these you know, uh, on these listing appointments, or if you're showing these houses to these buyers, make sure that you've had conversations with the listing agent. Make sure that you understand the concessions that are being offered. The price point is, the CMA is going to become even more important. Like, are they building that in, or have they not adjusted the market price and they're still not offering compensation? So negotiation of the pricing will become, I think, even more key. So really understanding that the homes that you are looking at, again, lazy agent no longer, right? I mean, you're going to have to do some due diligence before you go out to look at homes.
Yeah, for sure. It's now all about, and what I said earlier, I'm not looking forward to that process, is not that I don't mind making those phone calls. I hate tracking down
The
agents that
lazing
won't
agent.
answer their phone.
Yes,
uh,
100%.
yeah, and so now all of these things are kind of, now we're talking about it on the buyer side, which is like, not only are we asking for concessions on closing costs or repairs, now we're asking concessions on, you know, paying me. Big time.
Absolutely. I mean, the second point, offering concessions is going to become even more important if the listing agent isn't offering that co-op. So, and I know that there's talk of, the FHA rulings around what you can offer from a closing concession perspective.
Right.
So I think really being in tune with like those kind of things, the limits there, because I think they will change. I think lenders are going to have to change,
Right.
the lending standards.
Yeah, they will. And from what I heard, like FHA is generally fine, but VA
Yep.
is
Yes, the
not.
VA is the tricky. Yeah.
VA is not,
Yeah. No.
which is interesting. So,
Yeah.
so what can you do? Obviously, you have to be very clear and transparent on the ways that you can get paid. Um, and so, yeah, there's a
Yes.
variety of options here, which we haven't had to talk about before, really.
Yeah, no, potentially. This is something that I saw from Tom Ferry, kind of, as an agent, what can you do? Again, the messaging is going to become even more important to make
Right.
sure that you are clear with your buyers. Okay, like here are the ways that I can get paid. Either the seller has already put aside that commission and is kind of, offering that. It won't be on the MLS anymore, but it could potentially be in the additional provisions, their private website. You're going to really have to be communicative with that listing agent.
Right.
Maybe the seller has set aside less than my fee. Maybe they've just, hey, we're blanketing a 5% concession for whatever the buyer wants to do. So you kind of need to negotiate that into the contract, or they haven't set aside the commission. So
Right.
how am I getting paid?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's just one more communication hurdle on probably an experienced buyer or client. They, you're basically like retraining them on how things are done now. So it's like, well, in the past 5 transactions I've done with you, it's been that thing. Now it's this new fun thing. And on a new home buyer, it's just one more layer of confusion.
I know.
But I think that there are good, clear ways of like, obviously communicating what's happening. And I think that this 3-point breakdown is pretty much perfect. It's like, it's either they've already set aside the money for commission, they've set aside less than the fee, so we'll negotiate that, or they haven't set aside anything and we have to negotiate it, or or it'll have to come out of your closing costs, which is a not fun conversation. So hopefully we can negotiate all this and it'll look a lot like it has in the past, just not advertised up front. I don't know. We'll kind of see, but I think number 2 is the most important thing here, is like
Absolutely
communicating the clear on what your services are, what value you bring, and what you'll charge in light of those 3 scenarios of like, here's the 3 ways that this could go down.
Absolutely. And I think you made a great point previously around like what areas are you looking at? What are the stats? Like on average, how many homes do I need to show you before we put in an offer? Just really get clear on, hey, my last 5 transactions, I showed 48 houses. And on average they take X, and so making sure that the buyers are clear on, okay, like let's really focus in on the areas so we can just treating it a little more seriously. And I'm not saying that people didn't treat it seriously before, right, but I think just really sharpening your skills. I know that we're talking in a lot of cliches, like sharpen that pencil, put those tools in your tool belt. But I think it's really going to become so essential. Like you really need to get very clear. You need to really have these deep conversations with your buyers.
Yep. And so we'll go into the tools and resources, and then we'll go into how you and I are going to navigate this as investors and buyers, investors and agents, and then also how this kind of really applies to investors. So go through these resources.
Yeah. So these are just a few things that I have found recently. I mentioned the NAR, going to the NAR website. That is probably first and foremost. I mean, you're really going to get like the most pertinent information that you can there. Here are a few other places that I have found helpful. So BAM YouTube channel, they give out agent information all of the time. I find it pretty informative. They have different speakers. The Daily is a podcast, and they put out a podcast around this settlement, and a New York Times writer who writes about real estate did a podcast around this, and it was more from the consumer side of things, like the negative way that this has been affecting or claims to have affected the consumer. So I thought that was very interesting. And then Nicole Ruth is a lender here in Denver, and she just puts out really good information as well. And then EXP just put out a toolkit that kind of walks through some of these buyer presentations, some of the language you should use. And then NAR has an FAQ section. So these are just, again, very high level of places that I have found information that has been informative. And I think sometimes it's like, be careful who you're listening to. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So take it
Yeah,
all with a grain of salt, I guess.
yeah, and I think NAR, and if that's too esoteric for you or just too high level of like, how does this impact me day to day level? The EXP video,
Yeah.
where, and we'll link all of this down below. But the EXP video, if you haven't even watched it yet, that obviously the messaging from your brokerage should be like very top level important. So
Absolutely.
don't go to Reddit and read the comments on what's
Yeah.
how
What
this is
should I
going
do?
to how this is going to affect real estate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like as far as as far as real world, like how do you see this affecting what you do as an investor or as an agent working with investors in
Yeah.
your business?
Yeah. So I think this is not necessarily going to affect my business so much. I think I've always, at least for the past couple buyer appointments that I've had before I started working with the buyers, I was kind of having these conversations anyway. I
Sure.
think I'm going to bring more to the table around this is the metrics around, hey, in this area that you say that you want to find a home, here's the medium home price, here's the medium days on market, here's typically like how long from list to pending that's taking. So that means we need to, see 10 houses before we put in an offer, or what, just get really specific on the metrics around what I'm doing and like the value I'm providing. So I think that is something that I'm going to do. I'm just going to like really hone in on those metrics for my agents. As far as my business, I'm going to make sure that I'm really, really in tune with the comps in the area of investment properties I'm either buying or selling, making sure that I'm looking at other agent commissions, other home prices, like what are they closing for? 1%, 2%? What are the concessions? I think that's going to become more and more pertinent, going back and talking to agents who have had properties close in the area that your investment is either listed or you're about to buy something.
Right.
So really getting more in tune, even more so, and doing more due diligence around those pieces of those criteria.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's important to start implementing this stuff now
Oh,
versus waiting till July 15th when kind of the hammer drops.
absolutely.
Because you're just going to have to get used to it anyways. The new contracts and forms, the new changes,
Yes.
all of that stuff. Like, why not do it now? Because I don't think that settlement's going away, and it'll just magically go back to the way it was. I think this is kind of our new normal. So I think it'll get interesting, because if you're working with like flip clients, if you're working with if you yourself are a flipper, I've always put in like, here's my deal analysis. I'm looking at my selling costs. I always throw in 3%.
Yep.
I usually offer less because in Colorado it's like 2.8 for the listing. I don't know why.
Yep.
Who came up with that? That's probably why we're all getting sued to death over here. But I factor that into my selling costs.
Absolutely.
Well, depending on the state of the market, if it's a super duper seller's market, now I can actually just factor in potentially zero,
Yeah,
or
the ARV is going to change
yeah,
potentially.
like I could change, I could change the way that I'm evaluating properties, or I could still leave that in there knowing it's a breath of fresh air for that agent to bring their buyer if they know that they're going to get paid and that they don't have to fight for it. I could put it right out there in seller concessions and MLS,
Absolutely.
2.5%, as concessions for the buyer's agent, blah, 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 the verbiage that has to be in there. So I think that there's a couple different ways to go about that. And I think that they had a good point. Like the two people on the EXP call are like, they're OG veteran, they're both REO agents at some point. So they've seen buyers
Yeah.
markets, they've seen sellers markets. They're just like, the market will kind of dictate what's being offered, how much is being offered, how hard you're going to have to fight for these things. So I think as an investor, it's one more point that can be negotiated, right? It's like
Yep.
one more thing that we can potentially, fight for a better deal. As an agent, obviously, if I'm taking care of clients, that's kind of one thing. If I'm just doing my own purchases, I could go in and be a jerk and fight them on their commission. I could
Yeah.
be ruthless and get a better deal if I really want to. Um, so it is pretty interesting. All the different factors now we can play with. We can tweak all these different numbers now. And there's one more. Commission wasn't always on the table generally. Like you wouldn't mess
Absolutely.
with like the listing commission or the buyer's agent commission typically. But now that it's kind of fair game, you could just be like, look, instead of 3% on my deal analysis, I'm just going to do 2% and then let them try to fight for whatever else is in between that and 3%.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you could be a little bit more flexible on your listings, and it's not going to affect you too much if you're your own buyer's agent. You could go in and fight for your own commission. Some investor agents always just waive their commissions on buyer side. They go, I'm the buyer. This will incentivize the seller if I'm just saying
Yep.
like, oh no, now there's no commission. So that might affect you as well. If
Yep.
it used to be a nice, little honeypot of like, I'm the buyer. I come to you as the selling agent. I go, look, I don't need to get paid a commission because I'm the actual purchaser.
Yep.
Prior to this ruling, that's either saving the that's either saving
Seller.
the seller money, or it's incentivizing the agent to maybe make a little bit more commission, possibly. But now, if they're not offering anything, and I go in, that could either kind of lost that negotiation tool. But I think what I
Mm-hmm.
did gain was, okay, I'll play your 0% game, where all these other agents, they're fighting and they're trying to negotiate their 2% commission. I'm walking in and just saying, I'm fine with 0% because I'm the buyer and I would have done that anyways. And I
Yep.
think
Absolutely.
on the opposite side, I offer, and a lot of investors offer, like, hey, I'm an agent. I want to purchase this property, but I don't necessarily need to represent myself. If you want to represent me and get paid twice, here's your incentive, right? You
Yeah.
put in my offer. We'll sign a transaction brokerage agreement here in Colorado, dual agency in other states, whatever that looks like. But you're incentivizing that agent of like, you represent me and the seller, you get paid twice. What does
Yeah.
that look like now in this new market of that's just a nebulous number, or it's not even advertised? So if I go in and I say, look, you can represent me. Well, if they're
Yeah.
offering 0% commission for the buyer's agent, there's no, the seller would then have to go back to their, or the seller's agent would have to go back to their seller and say, look, actually, this guy wants me to represent him and I want to get paid on that
Yeah.
too.
They'll have to fight for it.
Let them fight for it. So it kind of takes away some negotiation tactics that we've used as investors before, and it
Yep.
introduces new things, which I think
Different.
in that
Yep.
first scenario replaces it. The second scenario, it's no longer enticing to that seller's
Yeah.
agent. If I come in and say,
Yeah.
you keep both sides of the commission, dude, I don't care. I just want the deal. Now,
Yeah.
that may not be an incentive at all for them.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, yeah, price is going to become even more and more important, because even if you are the buyer's agent because you're buying an investment for yourself, the price is going to become important. Like, no, you're not offering a buyer's commission, but also I can't add that buyer's commission to the purchase price, which helps me as the investor. But your house is still priced top of the market, and it shouldn't be. So maybe that's negotiation on, okay, we'll come down 5K or, 1%
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
So I think price is just, whether you're an investor, buying for yourself or a client, I think it's just going to become even more and more important. And I love because as a buyer who is also an agent, I've always put my commission towards the purchase price. So even if they were offering something low, they were offering nothing, it doesn't really matter because it's mine anyway. But that's
Right.
just an extra incentive.
Right. Yeah, and it'll be interesting. And one thing that we didn't talk about, which was unrepresented buyers who are now going it alone.
Oh,
And so
geez,
you as the
yeah.
listing agent now
Good
could
luck.
be inundated with dozens of calls from unrepresented buyers who are, they have no, typically they have no clue what the heck they're doing.
Yeah.
How do you, like, what do you think about that scenario?
So I have a client who actually kind of dipping his toe in for the past couple months, and he's like, "Oh, well, there's a listing down the street. I think I'm just gonna like go knock on the door."
Oh,
And I'm like, "What?" Like, I don't think that. I think that's more and more going to happen. These people who are like, "Oh, well, I don't need an agent. I'm going to save a ton.
right.
I'm going to call the listing agent." So that is going to be interesting. I've not seen a script of how do you handle that. Like, hey, I can show you the house, but then that means we need to have an agreement. Like, then that means I'm a transactional broker for you. And then explaining that to a buyer, they're going to be like, what? Right? I mean, because again, nobody works for free. I mean, I've even asked agents, if I'm out of town, like as a listing agent, would you mind giving access to my client? I'm out of town. The answer mostly is no. Like
Yeah.
I've had to pay other agents to go show, which no big deal. That's fine. But I mean, I think more and more we're going to see that. So
Yep.
that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're, it's like, if you're a listing agent now, you're going to be, you have to expect that you're going to get calls for every showing, well, at least from good agents who know what's going on,
Yeah.
right? And then now you're going to get calls from a bunch of buyers who are unrepresented and have like no clue what's going on. And they'll be like, and like there is this argument of, if you're a listing agent and you have somebody who calls you, like to see the property, are you not acting in the fiduciary responsibility to your seller by turning away a buyer
But
based
absolutely.
on, XYZ? And it used to be easy just to be like, look, here's a definition of working relationships. You are a customer. I don't represent you at all. I'll meet
Yeah.
you out at the property at 2:00. That could be a scenario, but now you actually have to have some sort of formal employment agreement,
Yeah.
as far as I understand right now. But
That's
it does throw one more wrench in the works of like, are you taking all these phone calls from agents, which you now should be doing, but now you have 10 buyers who are unrepresented who want to go see this property. What do you do with those
yeah.
people? Like, well, the open house is on Saturday, see you there.
Yeah. But
Or
again, to your point of the fiduciary responsibility, I mean,
yeah,
you as a seller are trying to sell the house, or you like the selling agent are trying to sell the house. So
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that'll be interesting, and that could be overblown. But there are a lot of people who are, they're usually the younger consumers who are like, great, the agent thing was a terrible system anyways.
Yep.
Now I can go it alone, or I can just go
I'm
with
an
my
educated
real.
consumer. I'm seeing
Yeah,
this house on Zillow. I'm just going to go look at it.
yeah. Like I have a real estate attorney, or I went through this Instagram
Of
course.
course.
Yeah, this guy who's selling $5.99 course on Instagram on how to represent myself as the buyer.
Yeah.
I went through his course, and now I'm going to go see it. You have to show me the property because you're not doing your duty to the seller.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be interesting for sure.
It'll be interesting. And I wonder if, title companies are now going to be called like,
Yeah,
hey, I want to purchase this house. What do I do?
yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, it is interesting, but I think as investors, uh, there will obviously be impacts. There'll be more stuff that comes up, and I think that a lot of it'll be experience. It'll just be
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
by mid-August, we should have a much better idea of how this is going to work in practice. Like it's
Yeah.
totally theory at this point. Um, but if you're putting into effect the transparency, the communication, signaling, like I have to have this conversation with the listing that's coming up that they don't want to sell till the end of July. Well, we're going to have this conversation right now of what to expect on what to offer on commission for that property. Even though I've sold two of their other properties, now it's a different thing, right? And so
Absolutely.
if you're like proactive and you're putting this stuff into effect today, which is April 2nd, by the time July 30th or July 15th comes around, you should have a lot more ideas. Like,
Be familiar.
and
Yep.
like I was telling Katie, we went to go see 5 listings yesterday. I believe 2 of them did not have a co-op fee in there. And so it's starting, right?
Yeah.
You're going to start to see, and I don't know where, like they acted pretty much the day of NAR, because I think they were just listed like 2 days ago.
Yeah, March 22nd or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, so it is
Whoa,
interesting
all
to
right.
see.
Okay.
It's because I think you used to have an amount in there, and
Yeah.
now it's
I
just
mean, it could be $1, but I think it had to be filled
Yeah.
out. So let me ask, how were the prices of the homes? Were they a little bit lower?
No, they were. I mean,
So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, I didn't pull comps on all of them, or actually any of them yet, because I usually pull comps usually when they're ready to offer, to get an idea of what's going on. But they seemed in line with all the other ones that we saw. They're all in
So
that 800 to 850 range, and yeah, I tried to call both of those agents. I haven't got a
and
hold of
couldn't get a
them.
hold of them.
Still haven't heard back. It's Tuesday.
Great.
Great.
So
I'm
you
so
don't want to
excited.
sell the house or what?
I'm so excited to not get called back by more agents. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, man.
But I think that there's a lot of ways that you can stand out in this new environment. There's a lot of ways that you can
Absolutely.
just do the bare minimum, which is all you need to do to stand out in this business. We all know
Yeah.
the lower under. I don't like to talk crap about agents, but there's a lower tier of agents who just do not do the bare minimum. And once you do the bare minimum, you're like, wow, you're like the top 10% of agents all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to like stand out, do your thing.
And educate. I think this is a good thing. I think education it's fun. It's fun to learn like new ways to do cool things. And to your point, I think it'll help you stand out. So, yeah.
I agree. You have any other closing remarks here before we wrap up?
No, I think just, educate yourself as much as possible. Be careful who you listen to. Not all information is deemed equal. And I think, paying attention to, what our brokerage is saying and the good information that they're putting out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you have any thoughts on like, do you have a general prediction on where this is going to go and how it's going to affect like the majority of us? Like, let's just say 75% of transactions will be XYZ. Do you have any idea?
Yeah. I think more agents will get out of the business. I think that this is very confusing. So I think, the agents I think agents will leave. I think I'm hoping that the market will normalize even more, but this is we live in a hot market state. So Denver is a hot area. So I don't know if I foresee, home prices coming down that much, maybe slightly adjusting, 1% or so, but I think that will be interesting. I think if they're not offering commission, I think something will have to give. I hope this doesn't inflate things. Like we're not offering commission and prices haven't gone down. So it's like crap.
Yeah.
Like what happens then? I mean, with the rates,
if rates like don't change for some reason, and then sellers just say like, oh, I'm just going to offer nothing. It's like, I would hate to be a buyer's agent who only relies on like Zillow leads or something like that. Like,
totally.
That would be the worst person to be right now, because it's already a hard job to be a buyer's agent, but now you have to overcome all these different hurdles. If you're just a listing agent and it's just like one more piece of negotiation, or I think that to me, I think there's going to be a normalization in that it'll be a system that's sort of like it was, but instead of offering a co-op commission, now a good listing agent will be like, look, we have to incentivize buyers agents to come in and bring us good buyers, to show the home and bring us good buyers. And so if we offer 2.5% right up front as concessions, it doesn't affect your bottom line as far as the old system versus the new system.
Yep.
And we're getting that, you're kind of getting some of that out of the way up front. So if I see a listing where they say like, look, the seller is already offering these concessions for the buyer's agent commission.
Yep.
I know that that's going to be an easier transaction than me having to go fight for one more thing.
Because it'll be easier for your buyer.
Yeah.
Like your buyer won't have to be like, shoot, where do I come up with an additional $15,000 or, whatever. I think I agree. I agree with all of that.
Yeah. And I think like good listing agents will be like, look, like they're bringing the buyer. Like they're either going to fight for their commission and it's just going to be one more point of contention inside of a negotiation, or we can offer them something up front and that will incentivize them to come in and do, and bring us good buyers, which is the goal, right?
Absolutely.
So like it's funny because we have so many goals, right? We want them to bring in good buyers, but we also want to make the seller as much money as possible.
Sure.
And that'll happen, I think, through good competition. I think like a listing that says we're doing 3%, not co-op anymore, but we're doing a 3% concession.
Yep.
Like that might bring more offers than not,
Absolutely.
which will then, you could still have a higher price and
Yep.
offer that concession instead of having like a mid price. And then now you're eating into your equity because you're fighting for that commission or whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I think it's interesting. It's not always fun to go through these new things, but we don't have a choice. So let's embrace it.
Yeah.
Let's do our best, and let's listen to the right people. Like Katie said, I think that's super important. There's so much crazy information out there.
Oh my gosh.
Don't
Yeah.
go on Facebook. Don't go on Reddit.
Oh my
They're
God.
terrible places to get any kind of advice. So,
Yeah.
Katie, thank you for putting this together, and thank you for being awesome and giving us your insights on NAR settlement for
Awesome. Yes. Yeah. Agreed. I think this is, it's a educate yourself and stay tuned.
Stay tuned. That's the most we can do. So, thanks again, and we'll see you next month inside of Summit. Again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything else like that, let us know. And until next time, we'll see you later.